Hello everybody. So today we're here with the beautiful Esther Tanez. She's actually a really good client of ours. She's been in the insurance business a long time, and I'll let her explain a little bit about herself. Go ahead, it's all yours.
My name is Esther Tanez. I own an insurance agency called ESTIR Inc. Insurance Agency that I founded about 17 years ago. In January 5th, it'll be 18 years.
Okay.
I've been in the insurance industry now for 30 years. I am a mother of 3 beautiful boys, 2 young adults and 1 child who's 13 years old. And I just love my life.
Awesome. So as you guys know, we interview very interesting people. So Esther is no exception. She has an incredible story behind her. So today she's going to tell us a little bit about that story. So Esther, how did you first get into this business?
Well, my dad wanted me to work when I was 16 years old, and he had a friend at an organization called Focus. It's a nonprofit organization still in Newark, and he knew the director there. And he said, I want my daughter to work, but I don't want her to work in retail. Can you find something in an office? And the director said, I may have something, let me see. And he called, made some phone calls, and I ended up in an insurance agency in Harrison, New Jersey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. So your dad didn't want you to just go out and get like
retail,
you said, a mall job or anything like that. He wanted something better for you.
He did.
He paved the way for you.
He did.
He's still thinking
fantastic.
For him,
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure, like anyone else, when you first started, you went through some trials and tribulations, some hard times. Can you explain to us maybe your experience with those things?
Well, you know, when I first started, I was very young, working first as a clerical person. By the age of 18, I decided to get my license in the insurance industry. I was trying to go to college, and there was not enough funds. So I ended up in business school and ended up taking insurance. It was a sales position when I was a little bit older, 18, and working in the car dealerships.
Oh, wow.
Answering a beeper. Some people don't know what beepers are, but there was no cell phones. You get a phone number on a beeper, and then you picked up a local phone or a landline and made the phone call, and that's how we got leads and sold insurance that way. So it's very interesting.
So the insurance, so the car sales guys, they would beep you when there was a client, and you'd run over everywhere, so you'd be running around
on Route 22 from Potemkin to Locardi's to, oh my goodness, it was great.
That's crazy. Well, that's a story you definitely want to tell the kids. So now, well, that was the beginning of your career. Can you tell us about other instances that you might have come across where it kind of morphed you into the person that you're today? Can you tell us about like more experiences that you had, or maybe the turning point in your career?
Well, I got married very young. I was 22 years old when I got married, and had my oldest son at 23. And I was married for 7 years, and I went from working to being a housewife, which was fantastic, and spent time with my 2 boys. And then, of course, like many marriages, it went through a divorce. And I found myself I was licensed, but I wasn't working in the industry. And so I had to now look for work.
Okay.
And when I was looking for work, I found that it was very difficult to get a good pay. I owned a home, I had a car and 2 kids, and it was thousands of dollars in expenses. And all they were willing to pay me was $500 a week.
Wow.
And at that point, I was desperately looking for work and didn't know what to do. What was the changing point was a time that I was watching a program with Oprah.
Okay.
And Oprah had a guest called Iyanla Vanzant, and she talked about her story. And her story was horrific for me, listening to a woman talk about being abused and molested, and then used by her boyfriend, given drugs, and then prostituted, and then found himself homeless.
Okay.
And she decided to pick herself up and go to school and become an attorney and change her life around. And as I'm watching her, I'm saying to myself, if she can do it,
why not you?
Why can I do it? And I got up at that moment and called my mother, who owns a home in Newark, New Jersey, and had an empty basement. She lives next to a big supermarket called Pueblo Supermarket. And she said, I asked her, if I can open an office there. And of course she said yes. And I only had $10 to my name. But that was the beginning. The beginning of starting my own insurance agency. Of course, I didn't know anything about business. I just knew how to sell insurance.
You just knew you were good at selling something.
At selling something.
So then, did you work out of your mother's basement for a while, or did the business ever pick up?
Oh my! So I opened the office, and with those $10, there was a Goodwill store on Verona Avenue in Mount Prospect, and I bought a desk, chairs, a file cabinet, and a phone.
Wow.
And so yes, that's how I started my office, and I gave flyers at the Pueblo supermarket, and my little sister and my nephew, they were very little, they would give out flyers too. But it didn't take off right away because it wasn't accepted to have an office in a home. People didn't trust it. I was in an urban area.
Yeah.
Even though I lived in North Edison and I saw offices in people's homes, in an urban area, they were not ready for that. And so we didn't really get customers. And I survived that year. Barely, but I survived.
Okay.
And then my mother, at the end of the year, said, I was just told that we cannot have an office in our home. And my mentor and friend, Bill Kasakis, helped me get a location. And I found a location in Broadway, New Jersey. And that's when it took off.
That's when you finally started to see the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
Okay. How long were you at that location before you started to see some more progress?
Well, I have to say that about 7 months later of being in that office, we did everything. We did some insurance because we didn't have a contract with admitted carriers. That means that we can only sell insurance to the state program. And we did notary public. We translated letters or documents. We helped fill out forms. We faxed. And I gave free services of reading letters because the community was changing and they didn't know how to read English. And they would get letters and they didn't know what to say. So I would give free services of reading those letters. And that helped pass the word, and people would come in. And then, of course, I would cross-sell and tell them, I do this, I do that in case you need it. Yeah. So one day I looked at my bank account and I had money.
Finally had money.
I was like, but I was freaking out because I was like, oh my God, is this the customer's money that belongs in the trust account? Is this my money? And I was trying to tally up and make sure that it was my money. And after checking it thoroughly and having a person at the bank checking it thoroughly, we found out that I did have money in it. And it was July of the year 2000 when I actually had savings.
Wow, amazing.
It was fantastic.
Good, and you can breathe. That's good.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, obviously, so first, if I understand it correctly, you were running an insurance agency with hardly any insurance
contracts,
and contracts, but you were giving the community what they needed. So you saw there was a need for something, and you weren't thinking about how am I going to get rich off these people, but how do I build their trust?
Right.
And how do I help and serve the community before I think of myself? So the word must have got out there, it caught fire, and then people started coming to you because they trusted you. Now
Absolutely.
they're like, Esther, not the insurance girl, but Esther, the person who can help me with any issue I might have. So it must have been a good feeling, a girl who, obviously came with nothing to the table and had all these people putting their trust, instilling their trust in you.
As a pastor's kid, I grew up in a long line of ministers, and they encourage service community. It was part of being a Christian. And I remember when I had to buy my own car, my first car, right? My mom didn't buy it. My dad didn't buy it. And then my mother said, if you're going to have a car, you have to do something with that car to help someone else. And that was the rule. You want a car? Then you got to donate time with that car. And I was like, what? I said, so I barely have money to put gas. And so she says, okay, so tell me who are you going to help? And there was an older woman in our church. Her name was Castro. I never knew her first name. Yeah. I only knew her last name for years. And so she says, Castro needs help going to the doctor, and she has nobody. So you're going to go pick her up in downtown Newark on Kinney Street. I mean, that's like on the other side of where I lived. And she lived in a building, so I had to go park the car, go upstairs, bring her down. She was fragile, and take her to the doctor's appointment. That was my job, and that was the only way I could have a car. On top that, I had to buy it. I mean, like,
for yourself.
I had to pay it myself. So I had to pay it and then donate time. So I grew up with that. I grew up with servicing community, helping. We always had someone in our home that needed a place to stay. My father was always looking for a refrigerator, that somebody's refrigerator broke down. So servicing and being my business was normal. It didn't seem like a strategy. It just seemed normal. That was the thing to do.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. You always have to give before you can ask.
Always.
You know? So that's great that you see it that way as well. A lot of great business leaders do the same way. You know, they always give. So now, I heard about this Nigerian lady story, and I'm dying to hear this story. Can you tell us about this one?
So now we're in business. Business has grown. We have 2 locations. And so there's a woman that comes in, a Nigerian lady, strong woman, very tough, and she's looking for work. And I'm like, I don't even have an admitted carrier. Most of our services here have nothing to do with insurance, and you know, I haven't been able to get an admitted carrier since I started. You know, I told her my story of what I went through, and she was like, well, what are you doing? What do you mean you don't have a company? And so she was in shock. And so when she sat down, she turns around to the door and she says to me, in life, sometimes we're allowed to knock on the door. But for you and me, we got to kick that door open. So I'm going to give you the name of a company that will give you a contract, but you're not going to say, please give me the opportunity like you've been doing all this time. You're going to say, if you really want to make money, if you really want to be with someone that's going to provide the sales that you need, give me a call. And that's how you're going to say it. You're going to demand that he sees the value in you instead of you putting the value in him. And as she was saying, I was getting red because I grew up in a very religious home, and submission and being, you know, almost, excuse me, I'm sorry, please. That was like a big when I was growing up. So to have to demand and blow my own horn, and
raise your voice.
It was hard. It was like, what? Not today. Today I do that very natural. Back then, you know, I didn't know how to do that. So that woman inspired me, and there was a day that I hardly sold anything. I picked up the phone, I called that company, and I, you know, introduced myself. I left a voicemail, and I said, you know, if you really want to make some money, give me a call. And then I wanted to erase the message. I was like, oh my God. I thought he was going to like spank me or something. I don't know. So then that company came by and they gave us our first contract.
They gave you your first contract?
In 2003.
After how many hundreds of companies you
oh my
to get
goodness.
carriers from, and they left you
They wouldn't even
behind.
answer my phone calls.
But then now you had some confidence in yourself and you made it seem like they needed you, not you needed them.
And that's key.
Yes.
And in business sometimes, you know, you got to blow your own horn. And you got to say what you're able to do.
Of course.
And I mean, you have to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just talk to talk. And it's not a disrespectful way. It's just saying who you are, what your values are, what can you contribute. And I think that's a very American culture.
Yes.
You know, of saying what you can do and sell yourself, because if you don't, who else is going to sell you?
They're not going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself.
Exactly. And so that's the interpretation, right? In the Latino culture, or very religious, we tend to be more, we wait for someone else to give us the hand.
Of course.
You know, but it doesn't work that way in the business world.
So how did your life change after this encounter with the Nigerian lady? Now the doors are opening up for you. You've got your first insurance carrier. What happens then?
So the person who helped me get the contract, the person that signed me up with Philadelphia Contributionship, which is a company that we still have today, she was the one that introduced me to the marketing rep of Mercury Insurance Company, the first auto insurance company that we were able to have. And we got our contract on August 18th, 2004.
Okay.
And we had a list of people waiting. Because every day people will come. And I'm talking about tons of people would come looking for insurance, and no one in Newark could sell insurance.
It wasn't.
There was nobody with the market, and then these people would go to other cities, and the other cities redlined them too,
because of where they lived.
Because of where they lived, and so there was tons of people without insurance. So we took their names and numbers because we knew the contract was coming. We already been interviewed. They gave us a verbal approval, and then it takes a couple of weeks to get the actual contract. So we were taking names and phone number. And when the guy came on August 18th at 2:00 in the afternoon, I signaled to my girls, start making phone calls. He gave me a quick training, and we worked there that night to midnight. There were so many people lined up looking for insurance, and life was sweet, to say the least.
Life definitely turned around for you at that point.
Absolutely.
That's
I mean, it already started shifting with the mindset.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that it starts here.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
And then the belief, and then having the verbiage of how to look for something, and then be determined, of course, discipline.
Now, it would have been much easier for you to quit.
Absolutely.
And take a 9 to 5, or stay at home and collect a check from the government. Anything you could have done in those days.
Well, yeah.
You took the road. There was less travel. You believed in yourself. You took chances. I'm sure you even leveraged yourself with money you didn't have. And sooner or later, things panned out for you. But it was your drive and your determination that got you there.
Everybody gets inspired in a different way. Mine was my 2 boys at that time. I have 3 boys now, but at that time there were 2 boys that were totally dependent on me.
You, of course.
And I was not going to go to welfare. On top of that, I'm Puerto Rican. I was not going to do that. I was like, And listen, I could have easily done that and everybody would have understood, right? Here's a single mother with 2 kids, little.
Yep.
They were 2 and 5. And I owned a home and I had a new car, and I mean, we had to eat at my mother's home. That's the reality.
Yeah.
There was no food in the home. So, but I was like, no, I'm not, I am not going to do that. And I was determined that I was going to work and figure it out, but I was going to earn it.
Correct. So after your business started to take off and you started to, reap the benefits, you had to get brought back down to reality. Somebody mentioned a book to you that you should read. Can you share that information with us? And how it changed your...
It's 2007. I now belong to a committee for an organization called Professional Insurance Agents, and it's an association, one of the largest associations in the insurance industry. And there's a story how I got there, but there was a holiday party, and I had to come in and sit down, and I didn't know anyone. And everybody's dressed up, and our industry is older men, older white men. And so all these older white men with their wives and secretaries and all that stuff were at this event, and everybody's sitting down, and I just had to pick the first chair I found. And I sat in the first table that I can find, and I, very bubbly, hi, how are you? My name is Esther, and introduced myself to the table. And the man that was sitting to my right turns around and he says, so what do you do, little girl? And I didn't get offended. I guess because I had my father was so much older. He always called me little girl, that I didn't get offended. And I said to him, I'm in the insurance business. I own an insurance agency. And he drills me for a couple of questions. And then he turns to his assistant and he says, send her the book, because what's about to come, if she doesn't know this, it would fail.
Yeah.
2007. December 24th, 2007, I get the book. I take the book, and every year we went to Florida. This year we drove to our summer home and taking furniture. And in my ride, I read the book, The E-Myth. The E-Myth is #1 book that every small business owner should read, because it would teach you to build an infrastructure. And if you don't know what an infrastructure is, it's procedures and systems in place where you can check and balances and monitor what's going on and how many sales and who's doing what and where the mistakes are made, and tracking activities from employees to even days of sales, slow days, busy days, peaks and lows, and how to orchestrate everything, and from answering the phone to how your office is supposed to look. It's fantastic book.
So that education that you got through this book, which if somebody were to buy today, probably would cost them $10, right?
It's so cheap. It's
right?
ridiculously cheap.
You almost got an MBA out of it because it helped you get through the recession, which a lot of companies during that time, they folded, and you were able to make it through and still to today have a thriving business, which is amazing.
In 2008, when the market crashed, we started getting cancellations from the customers, and we were bleeding heavily. I mean, it was
one after the other.
One after the other. One sad story. People were crying. I'm losing my home. I lost my job. My husband left. My wife left. It's just devastating time. And people were canceling policies left and right. We were canceling 70 policies a month.
Wow.
And how do I know that? Because they built an infrastructure.
To find out.
And when I came back from my trip in January of 2008, I changed the whole system in my office, and we were able to monitor everything that was happening. And had I not done that, not only it helped me survive through the market, through that terrible times, but then life interrupts.
Yeah.
Then I was remarried, and I'm going through a second divorce.
Wow.
And the son that was misdiagnosed has a learning difference, and he's dyslexic, severe. And now it's 2010. The bleeding stops in 2009. We start to rebuild. 2010, I'm going through this thing between my marriage and my son, and I could not work. I had to find out what my son had. So I spent more time driving with my little boy from doctor to doctor to try to find out what was the issue. And it took a long time, and it almost took a year. And when we found out what it was, then we applied for every school there was up north, because that's where I lived, in West Orange, New Jersey. And every school said no, except for the Lewis School here in Princeton, New Jersey. And that's how I relocated. And we have a second office here in Princeton, not because I was looking for Princeton, but because life took me to Princeton.
Life brought you here.
And it was a very devastating time, marriage falling apart, a child with not knowing what was happening, and a business that needed to run.
Yes.
And I tell everybody, if you don't have an infrastructure and you're still doing your business, instead of having a business that is running on its own, when life hits, and life will hit, that's why I'm in the insurance business, because life hits, you will go bankrupt or your business will fail, because if it's dependent on you, you're in trouble.
It's not a real business.
No, it's a self-employment, and that's wonderful. We all start there.
Yeah. But
at some point, you have to build an infrastructure that it's an organism that runs on its own. You have to understand it's separate from you. You are maybe the orchestrator. You put it all together, which is fantastic, fun things to do, to put a business together and go from choosing the name to the logo to the slogan to the location, what products you're going to offer. All that is fun. It's a lot of fun. I found it to be a lot of fun. And then you need it to run on its own.
Correct.
And if you don't do that, imagine getting sick. So my situation was my son and a marriage falling apart. For someone else, it could be cancer. For someone else, it could be a child going through something else. It could be anything. It could be natural disaster, whatever it is. What do you have built for your business that the business can still provide to you while you're going through that personal time?
Exactly. There are venture capital groups or investment firms, they won't even look at a company if it needs you to survive or to run or operate.
Yeah.
It's not a real business.
Yeah.
There has to be systems in place. It has to be things that are automated. And you are calling shots from time to time, but it shouldn't need you to run.
No.
So absolutely what you've done has been great. And thank God.
Thank God for that man.
Yeah.
San Filippo.
Awesome.
If I would have gotten upset that he called me a little girl and got an attitude, right?
Yeah.
This story would be a different story.
Totally different story. You probably wouldn't be telling.
You got to be humble sometimes.
You do. You got to know when to pick your battles.
Yeah, be humble, honey.
So now tell me about life today. What does life look like for you today on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's pretty good, I have to say. So I do come to the office. I am in charge more of the marketing of the business. I network, I speak, I teach. I look at systems that are in place right now and look how to improve it. I work with my team very closely to see, I don't want any of my employees overworked. So we look at their workflow, right? And then how do we make it very simple that they can keep doing it over and over again without being overwhelmed?
Yeah.
And we used to have tons of steps. Most of the work is now done with less than 10 steps.
Okay.
And then we've increased technology. We've bought more programs that makes the process of work easier. Okay. We used to have 15 employees. We're now down to 7, and we're very efficient. And so that's my job, and I love it. I love just tweaking, making it a little bit better, learning myself how to make it better, spending time with my staff, not only as employees, but having social time together.
Awesome.
And that's what I do.
Beautiful. So now, you being here in Princeton, having the second office, you're increasing your footprint on you know, for the company.
Yes.
Can you tell us your long-term goals with this site or with the company in general?
Sure. So ESTIR Inc. has been around now. It's going to be 18 years, and the staff that's in it is very good at what they do.
Okay.
So I opened a second company called Grassroots Insurance Group, and that company is just starting. It's in the very beginning. I'm very excited.
Okay.
Because having the experience of opening and building a business, now doing it with experience, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Of putting all the pieces together and who's going to be your target audience and who to market and what demographic you're going to hit and what products you're going to offer and all that wonderful stuff. It's a lot of fun. So ESTIR Inc. is going to become like a back office support, because what Grassroots is going to do is going to have small business owners who want to add insurance to their portfolio, especially accountant's office and tax preparers and multi-services, because they already have clients. All they have to do is offer one more service, and it's very natural when you are doing professional services to offer one more product. Correct. And the ESTIR Inc. staff will be the supporting team. We will quote it, we will process it, we will sell it for them, and as they're getting trained, and then make them become more independent. And as they do more, they make more, and hopefully make the max amount. And we'll have multiple locations. And right now we have 5 locations that are working with us and training. And hopefully 5 years from now, we'll be the largest. I am the largest Hispanic woman-owned insurance agency in the state of New Jersey.
Are you really?
Yes, I am.
Congratulations. I did not know that.
Yes. But this Grassroots, we're going to be all over New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you should set your sights higher in the country.
A country? Oh my goodness.
It doesn't cost you more to think big. So
that is true. That is true. So that's the goal. The goal is to build this company to give opportunities to other people that want to enter the insurance industry. My target audience is the Hispanic business owner. There's barely any Latinos in the insurance industry, and especially in New Jersey. And I think the only way we're going to have a voice is if I build this. If we get these business owners to join, and then when Trenton does something that we don't like, now we have a group of business owners in the insurance industry that can make some noise.
Absolutely. You have to.
Yeah.
Groups definitely get heard more than individuals, so that's great.
Besides, I'm getting old and I like to retire soon, and there should be a whole bunch of mini ESTIRs. What do you think?
I think so. I think you got a good, I like your business model, mini ESTIRs. That's good. So now, in closing, I want you to give your best piece of advice that you can give someone. Obviously nothing too crazy, but give them a piece of advice that you think will resonate with them and maybe help them get through those hard times. Or maybe help somebody that's stuck in that 9-to-5 that wants to go out there and maybe be more independent, especially women or minorities, people that need to push. Is there any piece of advice you can give?
We all have dreams, but a dream without action is just a dream. So if you have the dream of opening a business and you have an ability of doing something and you have you're an ethical person, you're diligent, you're disciplined, you're consistent, you know, take that leap. You know, I think Steve Harvey says, take the jump.
Take the jump.
And whenever I'm going to do something, like when I was going to do grassroots, I said, let's do this.
Okay.
And at some point, you have to say to yourself, I got to do this. I got to do this to save myself, to bring purpose to my life, because it cannot be like, I kind of sort of want to do it. It's something that you just have to do. Believe in yourself. Be educated in the product.
Yeah.
Always be willing to learn. Be humble.
Yes.
Listen to advice, and go for it. Now, that's not everything, but we don't have the length of time to talk about that.
We'll wait for your book to hear that.
That is true.
So I really thank you for your time, and I'm sure everybody out there is very happy to hear someone like yourself that has gone through those hardships. And I'm sure you're going to inspire a lot of people, and there's going to motivate these people to get out there and do something.
It's exciting.
That's what life's all about, you know, to set precedents for other people. So I'm glad we had this interview. And if people want to get a hold of you for any purpose, I'm sure they can probably reach you at ESTIRinsurance.com, or do you have anywhere else they can follow you?
We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all the nice, and my company name is ESTIR. Inc. And my name is Esther Tanez. You can follow me, and I'll invite you to follow the company. Okay. We are in Princeton and we are in Newark. So if you dial 609-688-1800,
that's you.
You can reach us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Louis.
It's been a pleasure. Right.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we'll do another one in a few months and see where you are then. Awesome.
Thank you
so much.